Okay, we're live. Hi, everybody. I'm Marissa Frosch from Amphibian Press, and today I'm here with the Beamed Up team. I am also known as Cameron J Quinn, and I'm one of the authors of the anthology. So we are Ariele Sieling. Ariel, can you say hi so it goes to you?
Hi.
There we go. V.S. Holmes
Hey.
and Cullen McHael. Cullen, do you want to
Hello.
start by telling us about your story?
Sure. I'm Cullen McHael. This is actually my first short story. Technically, I will have a second one that comes out like 2 days later, but this will be my first published short story in the grand tradition of everything important happening all at the same time. Dead Switch is a noir urban fantasy sci-fi in the grand tradition of of Blade Runner and all the wonderful Neuromancer and Diamond Age and so on. This one has a little bit, I have a consistent theme in a lot of my work where I like to play with the idea of medicine being illegal. So this one happens in a world in which they are buying and selling used human body parts as their but it's just a short heist story. I'm just, after years of experimenting, I'm doing what I'm best at, which is a simple, straightforward, we have something that we need to get out of a safe and it's protected and we have no problems at all. Everything goes perfectly smoothly.
No double crossing, nothing at all.
No double crossing, no secret agenda, no hidden identities, no surprising explosives, nothing untoward happens.
So you said it was a body part, like selling kind of a thing, like a Repo Man or whatever?
Yeah, well, that's what's going on in the world, although what's happening in this particular heist is just there are some documents in a safe that they need. But yeah, the character of Jin is a cannibal, which is someone who buys and sells human body parts on the black market. It's also a little bit transhumanist. They're always swapping out body parts for better ones.
Cool.
I think so. It makes it fun to write fight scenes because you've got so much you can play with in terms of body shape and capability.
Oh, that would be fun. I love fight scenes. So tell us a little bit about your main character.
Max the Killer is her nom de guerre. She's been an undercover operative for many years, infiltrating the cannibal society, but she's recently been burned, and one bad job has turned even worse, and she's run out of friends, she's run out of money, she's run out of options, and now she has just basically one option left, which is to go find the best friend she has left, which is a cannibal named Jin, and try to convince Jin to trust her for one last job. And that job, well, it's not last job. Hopefully it will not be the last job. They will have many more jobs after if they succeed. But the job is to crack into a spy's safe house and get all the goodies, all the false identities and guns and cash that a good, well-funded spy hidey holes away. So Max is desperate, as any good protagonist should be. She's also very capable. She's had many years of undercover work, and I have a particular fascination with protagonists who choose to go on the adventure. I don't like reluctant protagonists. I mean, no offense to anyone who does, but I like people who want to get involved, who will go for it. And Max definitely is that.
I really loved their dynamic. I was one of the first people to get to read it. And yeah, I really love the dynamic between Max and Jin and that sort of like push-pull. Trust me, do I trust you? Should I trust you? So I think you did that really well.
Thanks. That's what I was experimenting with, is trust. That was the drive for that particular one, is to play with different angles on trust and what it means.
All right. V.S. Holmes, do you
Yes.
want to go?
Sure. So the inspiration for my short story, Disciples, was my Nell Bentley series, which is sort of archaeology in space, for those of you who haven't read it. And this story actually follows Lynn, who is sort of one of the side characters, love interests on and off, in the Nell Bentley series. And it was really fun to write from her perspective. And this actually takes place simultaneously with Travelers, the first in the series. So definitely read Travelers first because there are spoilers. But it definitely is a different side of things. And I had a really fun time finding out a little bit more about Lynn than I actually did before. I thought she was a really nice person originally. So, but yeah, it follows her events when she is sort of summoned to Earth to just keep tabs on this archaeological dig. And much like the heist that Cullen was talking about, nothing goes wrong. Everything's fine. Not at all. And she sort of has to balance this, like, I want to do well for my family. I want to make sure that they're proud of me, but also, like, these people are in danger. And I feel like my officers aren't making the right call, and I feel like I could make a better call. So that's sort of what she's stuck between for the story.
Tell us a little bit about how she grew up.
So she and all of her people, they're genetically human. They're descended from people from Earth, but they grew up on a space station, and for generations they've never seen Earth except to maybe visit occasionally. And she's been to Earth all of, I think, 5 times before this. And much of her life is spent, spending a year in cryo sleep and then waking up. And sometimes she's older than her brother, sometimes she's younger, depending on if they've traveled at the same time or to the same place. And she has this very strong sense of, like, we're all connected because we're all this one people. But at the same time, she doesn't have a sense of self or home because of that.
In Disciples, how much does it go into like her history, or is it mostly just her personal journey?
It's mostly just her personal journey. There's a fair amount of her dynamic with her brother, and to a lesser extent her dad. But it's definitely more what's happening now. I kind of like to throw the reader in and hope they can swim.
That's pretty exciting because I've read Travelers. I haven't read Disciples yet. And at the end, there's definitely like a thing between who I assume is her brother
Yes.
and her. So I kind of can't wait to read this. Any other questions? Want to know more about anything?
I have a special love and fascination with side stories about side characters from their point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I just love
Me
that. So
well, it's
when
like
you're
writing your own fan fiction in some ways.
Yeah, and you get to be inside the head of someone you're not normally inside and see how the unreliable narrator is coming out, even where you didn't necessarily know you were doing that on purpose. So when were writing your original, when did you first start thinking about doing this side story?
It was probably a couple years ago. I think it was probably 2 years ago. All I knew was I just wanted to write something from her perspective. And then when I started writing it, I realized that she hadn't met my other protagonist yet. And that's when I was like, oh, that's the story. But yeah, so it was a couple years ago. Sure.
And it was the 2 protagonists meeting that kind of made you know you needed to do it?
Yeah, because I really wanted to find out more about her, what she wasn't saying, because there's a lot that she doesn't really say or just lies by omission. And I wanted to explore that, how much of that was lies.
It's also really interesting just because, Lynn is a character that comes in literally about halfway through Travelers.
Mhm.
So it's like, what was she doing? Like, where was she? And now we get to know.
Being a creeper.
Being a creeper.
Okay, you don't have to read the story now. You know it all.
Hardly. Okay. Ariel, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Ariel. I'm here with my dog.
Yes.
He's sleeping, so he won't be answering any questions. I'm sorry. So same as Cullen, I have the first segment of my serial Land of Sojourniac is launching on Wednesday. So, of course, everything always happens at the same time. My short story is called The Stalk. It is a fairy tale retelling of Jack and the Beanstalk, set on a recently colonized planet with a giant space elevator. The main character, Jack, is what's called a digger, and her job is filling in this like giant gaping hole, except that it never gets any fuller. They just like keep dumping into it to try to fill the hole, and it never gets any fuller. She gets invited to go to the Stalk one day, and is really nervous about it because all of the previous diggers who went to the Stalk either were killed shortly thereafter or killed themselves shortly thereafter or disappeared. So when she gets there, obviously everything's perfect and wonderful and utopian. So just kidding. That's not what happens at all.
There's a theme.
So she gets there and the problems are much bigger than originally anticipated, and she has to make some decisions and deal with some stuff, etc.
Where'd you get the idea for a sci-fi Jack and the Beanstalk?
So I've actually been working on a series of fairy tale retellings. Eventually I want to put together my own anthology of short stories all by me. So I've done, a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, Snow White, The Ugly Duckling, Hansel and Gretel, and I did one with you guys, Red and White. What was Red and White supposed to be? What'd you say?
Red Riding Hood? Because
Maybe. I don't remember. I wrote it down somewhere. Sometimes the fairy retellings are very, very, very broad retellings. So much so that I forget what they're retelling of. So when I saw you guys were doing another anthology, I was like, oh, it's a perfect opportunity to. I actually played around with Peter in the Pan was one I was playing around with, but I couldn't quite get it together for this one. But Jack and the Beanstalk I had jury duty on the day that I wrote it. And I had to sit in a room for like 9 hours, and I had a notebook and a pen, and that's what I did.
Uh-oh. Oh, there's... So your decision to make Jack a girl, where'd that come from?
So I have been reading a lot about representation in literature. And so I've been working slowly for each of my characters to represent less represented demographics. So women is a big one currently. I didn't pick race or specifically I use female pronouns, but for Jack I didn't actually pick a biological pronoun. And I liked the idea of her having a male name and then using female pronouns without actually getting into any details. And then, so I've just been trying to experiment a little bit and see how I can do stuff like this a little bit more subtly without being super obvious, but making it accessible to a wider variety of people.
Anybody else have a question?
Not necessarily a question, but I think I messaged Marissa like halfway through reading The Stalk, saying like, "Dude, this is awesome. This is so creepy. This is so cool." So
I'm glad you liked it.
People need another reason. I was in Panera and I still managed to get like creeped out. So it's one of the least creepy settings. Well, it should be.
Hopefully.
Are there any other characters besides Jack who are like important to the story?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of minor characters. Let's see if I can remember their names. So at the beginning, you meet her coworkers, Petrov and Shelly, I think, or Shelby. Can you hear my dog snoring? Sorry if that's happening.
No.
And then when she goes to the stock, so she's invited to the stock because the investors are visiting and they want to interview people from the surrounding town. So she meets several other people from the surrounding town. The most important one is probably Ace, who is a climber, which is kind of the opposite of a digger. She climbs the outside of the stock and cleans it. And then because the hydrogen in the air reacts with the stock itself, creating some sort of like rust buildup type thing. And then the other, I think, more important character is Leroy. He is the driver of the hovercopter that picks Jack up and takes her to the stock, and he plays a larger role throughout the story.
Nice. So I guess I'll go. I wrote, I'm Cameron J Quinn for the sake of fiction. And I wrote How to Abduct an Alien. For this, I started out writing a completely different story. But I had been taking a break from my Starsboro Chronicles and the other story wasn't working and I couldn't figure out why. And finally I gave in and decided to work with Zurich some more. So in this story, it's just like it says, an alien is abducted. But first Zurich is abducted because that's like my biggest fear. I don't want to believe that aliens abduct people because I don't want that to be possible, like at all. So that was kind of like I got to work through a bit of my fear with that, with him getting abducted. And then he gets saved by an alien who is like an anthropologist, basically, and wants to come to Earth to study people in their natural habitat. And then he gets kidnapped by a scientist.
It's a terrible idea. Go back.
We're weird.
We're not
really
not
dangerous.
Yeah, he learns that we're dangerous, so getting kidnapped and all by a mad scientist, not even a normal okay scientist, but a mad scientist.
We're all mad here.
Oh, and this particular scientist is VS, and I like to have character crossovers, and she has a story or a series in the works, and this doctor is going to play a part in that too. So
cool.
I'm kind of excited. I get to work with a young, crazy doctor dude.
He doesn't get any less crazy, sadly.
I don't know how to say his name though.
Von Riel?
Von Riel.
Von Riel. It's Dutch, like moi. Well, not like me, not moi is French.
Okay,
So
let's not do language.
What kind of crazy do you mean when you say, I mean, obviously there's a mad scientist stereotype, but do you have any specific type of crazy that you're thinking when you wrote her?
Unethical, right?
Yeah, unethical. Like, it doesn't care how he gets the result as long as he gets a result, as long as he finds out, whatever there is to find out.
Okay.
It's kind of like knowledge hungry. Like,
pursuit of truth at all costs.
Yeah. Like ethics don't exist.
Got it. Amoral? Is that technically amoral?
That's it.
Think so.
Yeah. Amoral versus anti-moral, which is just an asshole.
Yeah.
All right, we're live. Oops.
It's fine. I just did this whole thing about personal branding, so it's fine.
Marissa, you just told me that I didn't realize this before, but that you chose to write this as like teen Zurich.
Yes.
So
yes, it's when he was
why
a kid.
Why did you choose that? Super excited.
So when I first did this, I I knew in Zurich's past his girlfriend died because so for people who don't know, in the Starsborough Chronicles, he fights paranormal things. And when he's a teenager, his girlfriend dies during one of these fights because he let her participate. And I knew that happened in his past, and I've wanted to write about that for a while, but this has kind of turned into like the aftermath of that. It takes place a couple weeks after her death. And when I first wrote this, it was, I think I wrote it in like 2015, and it was the Halloween special. So originally he got abducted by aliens, fought a Bigfoot, saw a chupacabra, heard a werewolf, and then fought a vampire.
Perfect, like you do.
Right.
It sounds like a pretty normal Halloween. Yeah.
But obviously this, I wanted to elaborate on the alien abduction. In the original scene, he was abducted and it was from his little brother's perspective. So his brother was sitting there like, what do we do? Zurich just got abducted. And then he gets spit back out by the spacecraft and he's shooting at it. Like basically he got abducted and opened fire and they spit him back out. Was the original. Oh, I didn't like that. Yeah. So I wanted to elaborate on what he would actually do if he got abducted. And that's kind of where this story came from.
I like the idea of writing what you fear. I think that's something that I do too, is you take something that you're really afraid of and you put it into a story, and that lets you really access your own heartbeat, so to speak.
And work through it in like safe ways.
I'm still terrified. Like I don't even want to think about it. And
watching The Fourth Kind with you was like,
I bet it was funny
painful.
for you.
It was moving. It was painful to watch you. I saw an owl the other day, Marissa.
Oh, I heard an owl the other night. I got up to go to the bathroom and there was an owl outside my window and it freaked me out. Because of that damn movie. I can't even enjoy owls anymore. Not cool.
Nothing is
people who made that movie, not cool.
Don't come to my house then. There's owls everywhere.
Aren't you in the city?
Yeah, they're
I
not
guess
real.
there are owls in the city.
They're
Like,
images. I like
Oh,
owls, and people keep giving me gifts with owls on them. So I like have an owl plate and owl wall hangings and owls everywhere.
I like owls as long as they're not white and at night and like after I had some kind of a weird dream.
They're creepy. They're so quiet.
You want to know what we have in Baltimore?
What?
Rats the size of cats.
Cool. That's cool. That's great.
That's large.
At least you can
we
see
had rats in the hotel, but they were like little guys.
Oh gosh.
So we need the owls here, basically.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the owls than the rats.
Did you see that Facebook thing where it was like the guy checked his trail cam because his cat was acting weird and it turned out that the cat got picked up by an owl?
No.
So I bet they could get those rats.
I bet, yeah.
Okay.
We'll just mail you some owls.
That would be.
Now, do you send them by owl, like Harry Potter?
There you go.
Yes.
You send an owl by an owl, a little owl carried by a big owl. Owl delivery. Of your owl scores, don't they have a test called an owl too?
Yes.
Like
ordinary with
the
owls.
wizard.
Yes.
Oh, ordinary, yeah.
That's what you need. Baltimore just needs more owls.
That's right.
I mean, more wizards to have owls. Sorry.
I just go with the wizards. The wizards would probably be fine.
Maybe they can turn the rats into stuff.
Yeah,
it's interesting that you were saying that it started as urban fantasy. So I'm curious, how many of these stories, because Dead Switch started as urban fantasy as well, and then became science fiction when I felt like that was more interesting. But really, it's not all that different from an urban fantasy in concept and in execution. It doesn't take all that much to switch a Blade Runner into a Harry Dresden. It's just substitute magic and androids for elves, and you're basically there. So how many of these stories have a little bit of an urban fantasy element to them?
Well, all of mine actually are urban fantasy. And then I use other elements. So like the fourth one, How to Defend a Damsel, is more of a horror. The fifth one is like a paranormal romance. The first one is the only one that's really, I think, urban fantasy. The rest of them all have different elements depending on, like the last one is a thriller. So
the last few are pretty horrific. like in a good way, like they're scary.
Well, I was trying to go more for the horror feel because I feel like people who like paranormal stuff like that to be scared too. And the paranormal part's the fun part for me. And actually being scared. I like to scare myself while I'm writing. So
it's the aliens. Yeah, mine just started out as like historical fiction as far as like the universe. There weren't aliens originally or space or anything. It was just like, it was going to be a dual point of view, like this archaeologist and then the person that she was studying like 13,000 years ago. And that's not at all what happened.
Wow. Yeah, that's not what happened. 3 books later. Yeah. Space is cool.
That's one of those things though where you're like fighting with a story and then you realize why it's not working is because you weren't writing the right thing.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Like
all of our stories got beamed up.
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly. They did.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. We need the branding. We're here about beamed up people. Oh, for real quick, let's just mention that if you pre-order Beamed Up, you get cool incentives or bonuses,
which are super cool because I've seen them.
Yes, I haven't seen them yet. It's not fair. It is fair. Keep going. But yeah, so all you have to do is email beamedup89@gmail.com with a copy of your receipt, and you get the bonuses, which are character art. You who have seen them, be more specific.
Yes. Character sketches for each of the main characters. So
nice.
And they're really like cool and stylized.
Oh, I forgot to mention. So in the beginning, Zurich gets abducted by an alien, but it's actually because he's at the site where someone was supposedly abducted. He doesn't believe that they were abducted by aliens anyway. And I'm really excited about her character because she was just supposed to be like somebody he was trying to save, but she's kind of turned into a key point in the book. And her name is Janie, and she is one of my second non-white characters. So one of my second non-white character. I guess third because Tug, but
yeah. I was like, I'm counting differently than you.
Oh, and I guess Hawk is Chinese. Okay, I have more than I was all like excited, but I mean, well, yeah,
the opposite though. I mean,
I'm still excited, but she's just been a lot of fun to write because I read The Hate You Give, and it got me into that like teenage African-American girl feel, and I've wanted to write one ever since, so it's been fun. Her name right now is Janie, but I don't know if I'm going to change that because when I first wrote it, I just put a name in to put a name in, and I'm thinking
you have 10 days.
I know.
Or something.
No, I don't even have 10 days because I'm not going to take that long. I'm going to read it tonight, and then it will be done.
That's okay.
But anyway, yeah, just going off of Ariele, I've also been trying to write more diverse characters and people who aren't as represented. So,
and
okay,
Jin, she's not Cullen. Jin, she's not white, correct? I mean, other than like the cat eyes and the
neither Jin nor Max are white. Max's ethnicity is spy. He's from Bayea, which is a city in Algeria. But they're both international spies, so it's really what you choose.
Non-distinct.
Yeah, I've been writing people from other cultures than my own is something I've been working a lot on. And skin tone is part of that, obviously, but representing cultures besides your own is challenging because there's a lot that you don't know. In the web serial that I'm working on, the characters in Thailand, I spent a bunch of time in Thailand trying to get my head around the Thai culture, but there's so much that you don't know. I just found out yesterday that something that I'd been doing using Thai language was wrong, that they don't talk that way, they don't use that word, and they wouldn't. So it's tricky, and it's important to emphasize the voices of people who actually are from that culture. But of course, all of us want to keep writing too. So for me, a big part of why I write is to put myself into other people's shoes and to see how they see the world. So for me, processing other cultures is also what I'm doing when I'm writing.
That's important too. Especially the you don't know what you don't know. Sarah V and I just read The Girl with Seven Names, and she's from North Korea. And there was so much that I didn't know. Like it's insane. So I can't even imagine trying to write from another culture. That's like a whole nother ball game.
That's an amazing opportunity, though, to like go and live there and spend time there in Thailand.
Yeah, you have to research for your characters, I guess, but not, always to the same degree. The internet's a wonderful resource, but it's also a little bit of a narrow stream of data. You only get what's written down or what people happen to put on their cell phones. But for me, when it comes to culture, I think the critical thing is to work mostly with cultures that you are a little bit familiar with, so that you can be as truthful as possible. Mm-hmm. And sci-fi helps. Sci-fi and fantasy helps, because then we're making it all up.
Right. The research is in our brain.
Yeah.
Makes a difference.
Yeah.
All right. So really quick, which order did we go in? So Cullen, will you tell us where people can find you on the internet?
Yeah, CullenMcHael.com is my blog. Cullen, like the vampire, and McHael is MCHAEL.
And I will put links in the bottom. They're just not there yet. Sorry.
When Twilight was really popular, I got a bunch of free food from waitresses who wanted, like, Cullen. I was like, okay.
Sure.
I'll take it.
Did you like put glitter on to like really get the whole effect, or?
I should have.
Cover yourself in
should have done that.
But more free food.
Okay. V. Sorry. V.S. Holmes, where can people find you online?
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I guess Goodreads, technically. And and my website, www.vs-Holmes, like as in Sherlock. And yeah, links will be all below. I'm definitely the most active on Twitter and the least jaded with Twitter. So,
and that's
if you have to choose one, yes,
that's impressive.
And Ariele, where can we find you?
I'm in all the places as well: Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, Google+, Goodreads. I could probably keep going. My website is www.arielesieling.com. That's ARIELESIELING. But you'll probably spell it wrong, so you could just go to unicornsheep.com. It's probably easier to remember.
I've already memorized it.
And I'm Cameron J Quinn, and you can find me at CameronQuinnBooks.com and Cameron J Quinn Books pretty much everywhere, or Cam Quinn Books on Twitter.
All over all the amphibian stuff.
Yes, everywhere there's amphibian stuff, there's me. Just kidding. Also, if you're interested in the Starsborough Chronicles, they're kind of like not available right now, but they will be again soon. So, all right. Thanks, guys. This has been a lot of fun, and I can't wait when Beamed Up comes out. I don't know,
which is on June 19th.
Ah, yes. So pre-order beforehand if you want the bonuses. Pre-order beforehand. Yes. Like, what else does pre-order mean?
Well, yeah.
Order before June 19th. Yes.
Well, as long as your receipt says it's before 19th.
Yes, but I can't guarantee. Like, I would send it right away because I can't guarantee how long the email will be good for. So,
right.
ASAP, people. All right, we will. That's it, I guess. We're from Amphibian Press, and the anthology is Beamed Up. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.